Every conversation you have can either lift you up or drag you down. I'm not exaggerating. There are words that build bridges and others that erect walls. The problem is that most people start with worn-out, hollow phrases that leave no mark. How many times have you said or heard that "hello, how are you"? That means nothing. It's an automatic greeting, a background noise, a spark extinguished before it ignites. That's how most interactions begin, without strength, without direction, without impact. This video goes straight to the essentials, transforming the way you speak to create deeper, more authentic, and memorable connections. We're going to leave behind the routine and pave the way for what truly makes an impact. Because you don't need long speeches or convoluted phrases. You just need to learn to use the right words with full awareness, understand, sense, true, and listen. 4 pillars that combine Stoic wisdom with modern psychology and neuroscience. 4 simple tools that awaken trust, lower defenses, and generate natural attraction. This is not about empty techniques. It's about understanding that your voice can be the fire that ignites the connection or the silence that extinguishes it. And if you stick around, you will not only discover how to apply these keys, but also how to replace the superficial with the authentic. Because while others get lost in the "how are you," you will have the courage to say, "Tell me something good." That phrase breaks the routine, opens doors, and immediately reveals that you're not just talking for the sake of talking, but that you're seeking something real. 1. Make understanding your personal trademark. Understanding works like water in the midst of a drought. When it arrives, it calms the earth, refreshes the environment, and brings life to everything it touches. The same is true in conversations, because there is nothing more powerful than feeling that someone really understands you. Think about it. Most people speak waiting for their turn to respond, not to understand. They only listen to the words, but not the background, not the silences, not the hidden emotion behind what is being said. And there lies the difference between a superficial interaction and a connection that endures. Stoicism taught that what is important is not what happens, but how we interpret it. The same rule applies to communication. Understanding does not mean approving everything the other person says. It means having the ability to enter their inner world without immediately judging. When you make understanding your personal trademark, people feel that with you, they can let their guard down, that they don't need to prove anything, because you are willing to see what is behind the words. And that is a magnet, because trust is born from feeling understood, not from feeling corrected. If you want to apply this practice in your daily life, start by stopping interrupting. Many believe that showing understanding is completing other people's sentences or giving quick advice, but that only creates distance. A person doesn't want you to finish what they are saying, they want you to pay enough attention to finish it themselves. Leave space, let the words flow, even if there are awkward pauses. That silence is not a waste of time, it is the fertile ground where it is perceived that you are really listening. Another common mistake is wanting to respond with your own stories too soon, as if each person's experience had to be compared to yours. That is not understanding, that is stealing the spotlight. Avoid it with a clear rule. Before talking about yourself, acknowledge what you heard from the other person. A simple phrase like, "I understand why you feel that way," has a much greater impact than any personal story. It is also key to learn to read what is not said. The tone of voice, the look, the gestures, everything communicates. Neuroscience shows that the human brain responds more strongly to non-verbal emotional signals than to the words themselves. If someone speaks to you with a lump in their throat, it is useless to respond with a logical or cold comment because the emotion is ignored. Understanding is connecting with that deeper level. It is showing that you notice what is behind the surface. The most important advice is not to fall into the trap of always wanting to be right. Understanding is not about winning a debate, but about gaining trust. The Stoics repeated that we cannot control what others think or feel, but we can control how we respond. And your response, if it is loaded with understanding, can even transform a difficult conversation into an opportunity to strengthen the bond. A discussion is not won by speaking louder. It is won by showing that you understood what the other person wanted to express, even if you do not agree. Make understanding your brand. Let each person who speaks with you feel that they were not ignored or reduced to a procedure. Avoid interrupting. Avoid stealing the center of the conversation with your anecdotes. Avoid rushing to give advice that no one asked for. Instead, really listen, acknowledge what the other person feels, and validate their experience without fear of losing authority. The paradox is that when you do not fight to impose your point, your voice becomes more respected. 2. Value what others express. A person's words are like coins they toss into the air, hoping someone will pick them up. If they fall to the ground and no one looks at them, they become lost noise. But when someone picks them up and gives them importance, they transform into something with weight and value. That's how conversations work, whether they are deep or everyday. When the other person feels that what they said was taken seriously, the connection strengthens and a door opens to trust. On the other hand, when what they express is ignored, ridiculed, or taken lightly, that door slams shut, and it's hard to reopen it. Valuing what others express doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means recognizing the effort, intention, and truth behind each word. The Stoics spoke of treating the other's voice with respect, because in each opinion resides their perception of reality, and even if it doesn't coincide with yours, it deserves to be heard. This attitude prevents the conversation from becoming a battlefield, where the one who speaks loudest wins, and transforms it into a space where both feel their voice matters. Perhaps someone talks about a problem that to you is insignificant, but for that person, it's a real burden. A response like, "That's nothing," or "You're exaggerating," destroys the value of what they confided in you. Replace those phrases with others that recognize the effort of opening up. For example, "I understand that this is important to you," or "Thank you for telling me." This change of focus transforms the experience of the speaker, because what they receive is not judgment, but validation. The second tip is to use questions that deepen, not close the conversation. Often we only listen to the basics and change the subject, which conveys indifference. Instead, ask questions that show real interest, like, "What was the hardest part of that?" Or "What did you learn from that situation?" These questions not only show that you value what they said, but you open the door for them to share more. Another key aspect is to avoid the habit of competing with your own experiences. When someone tells something, we usually respond with, "That happened to me too," or "I experienced something worse." This attitude displaces the other and leaves them in the background. If you want to give value, first listen and acknowledge their story before talking about yours. Even if you decide to share afterwards, do it with the intention to connect, not to compete. A phrase like, "What you say reminds me of something I experienced, but yours has a special nuance," changes the meaning completely, because it keeps the attention on the other while you contribute to the conversation. The third tip is not to use sarcasm as an immediate response. It may seem funny, but in reality, it can hurt more than you imagine. If the other person opened up to you, respond seriously, even though there may be room for humor later. Giving value is not about embellishing the other's words. It's about holding them firmly and showing that they deserve your attention. When you make this habit a part of your life, people feel motivated to talk to you because they know they won't be ignored or belittled. You start to stand out, not because you give great speeches, but because you are one of the few who really know how to listen. And although many believe that power lies in having the last word, the real power is in giving value to the other's word. 3. Use validation as a power strategy. Recognition works like a clean mirror. When someone looks at themselves and sees their worth reflected, they straighten up, lift their gaze, and feel more confident. On the other hand, when the mirror is broken or foggy, what they see is distortion and doubt. The same thing happens in conversations. Validation is that mirror that gives the other person a clear image of themselves. It is not empty flattery or superficial praise. It is the ability to make the other person feel that what they say makes sense, that what they think matters, and that their experience deserves a place. And although many overlook it, validation is a power strategy because it creates immediate trust and opens paths that imposition never achieves. In everyday life, we often confuse validation with agreement. It's not the same. You can validate someone without sharing their point of view, because validating means recognizing the legitimacy of what they feel or think, not surrendering to their opinion. That difference is key, because when you validate, you do not lose authority. On the contrary, you strengthen it. To bring validation into your conversations, the first tip is to learn to use phrases that recognize without exaggerating. Expressions like, "What you're saying makes sense," "I can see why you think that way," or "I understand your point of view," generate an immediate feeling of security in the other person. It is not necessary to agree or change your stance. Just show that you listened and that you are capable of recognizing the logic of others. That simple action breaks defenses and prevents the conversation from becoming a battle of egos. The second tip is to practice validation in the midst of disagreements. Many people believe that validation only occurs when there is affinity, but the real strength is in doing it even in difficult discussions. If someone presents an argument contrary to yours, instead of ridiculing or minimizing it, validate their effort first and then present your perspective. A phrase like, "I understand your point, and at the same time I see another side that you may not have considered," completely changes the tone of the conversation. Not only do you reduce tension, you also generate more willingness to listen to you, because the person feels that their voice was recognized before receiving yours. Another practical tip is to avoid the trap of cold silence. Sometimes we believe that not responding is neutral, but in reality, silence can sound like indifference. Validating means responding with gestures, words, or attitudes that confirm that what was said did not get lost in the air. Nod, maintain eye contact, make small interventions that show presence. Validation is not always expressed with elaborate phrases. It is also built with body language that conveys attention and respect. Neuroscience backs up this power because the brain releases dopamine when it feels validated. This chemistry generates pleasure and motivates to continue sharing. That's why people naturally seek out those who make them feel heard. It is no coincidence that some leaders influence without shouting or imposing. They do it because they validate those around them. If you want to strengthen this practice, avoid 3 common mistakes. Do not use validation as manipulation, do not turn it into empty praise, and do not limit it only to the topics that interest you. Validation loses strength if it sounds forced or fake, and it becomes distrust if it only appears when you want to achieve something. Make it constant, sincere, and balanced, because that way it stops being an occasional resource and becomes a trait of your character. 4. Elevate your presence with listening. Attention is like a beacon in the midst of a storm. When it's on, it lights the way and gives security to the one who navigates. When it goes out, all that remains is confusion and danger. The same happens in conversations. Your presence is noticed when you truly listen. It's not enough to hear words, because hearing is passive, while listening is an active act that reveals your discipline and respect. Most people don't listen. They wait their turn to speak, and that difference is evident. The one who listens stays etched in memory because they offer something scarce in this time: full attention. In a world where everyone lives distracted, being the one who listens is an act of power. Stoicism taught that mastering the mind is mastering impulses. And listening is training to control the desire to interrupt, impose, or divert the conversation towards oneself. The first advice to elevate your presence with listening is simple. Eliminate distractions. Leave the phone. Avoid looking around. Don't give signs of hurry. The other person perceives every gesture, and if they feel they are competing with your screen or your thoughts, they will close off immediately. Listening demands total focus, not halfway. When you make someone feel that at that moment they are the only thing that matters, you generate a stronger impact than any speech. The second advice is to practice the echo technique, not by repeating the exact words, but by returning the essence of what they told you. For example, if someone talks about a difficult day at work, it's not enough to say "I understand," but to reflect it. It was a heavy day, and it exhausted you. That echo shows that you processed what you heard and that you make it yours for a moment. It's a practical way to show that your presence is not superficial. Another crucial aspect is learning to listen to what is not said. The silence, the tone, the long pause, everything communicates. Sometimes words are just the surface, and the most important thing is underneath. The person who listens attentively perceives these nuances and responds to them. If someone avoids a topic or lowers their voice, don't ignore it. Give them space to open up without pressuring. Your presence is elevated when you show sensitivity towards the invisible, not just towards the obvious. The third advice is to contain the urge to give immediate solutions. Listening doesn't always mean fixing. Many times people are not looking for answers. They are looking for a safe space to empty what they feel. When you rush the conversation with quick advice, you show anxiety, not interest. Better keep silent, accompany, and allow the other to come to their own conclusions. This not only strengthens trust, but also makes you someone whose presence generates calm. Neuroscience shows that the brain responds with gratitude to those who give it full attention. The release of oxytocin, known as the connection hormone, increases when someone feels listened to. This chemistry is not achieved with automatic phrases, but with active listening that transmits that the other is important. That's why people seek out those who know how to listen, because they make them feel valuable without the need for adornments. Avoid falling into 3 common mistakes: pretending to listen while thinking about what you will say, interrupting to impose your experience, and showing disinterest with gestures that contradict your words. Each of these habits destroys your presence in seconds. 5. Swap routine for freshness. Conversations are like a river. When it flows with strength and variety, it brings life and attracts. But when it stagnates, it loses movement, becomes murky, and no one wants to approach. This happens when we always use the same phrases, the same greetings, and the same automatic responses. Dialogue becomes a predictable terrain where nothing surprises or arouses interest. Routine kills curiosity, and without curiosity, there is no real connection. Breaking the routine in conversations does not mean being extravagant or inventing false stories. It means bringing freshness, novelty, and spontaneity that make the other person feel that talking to you is different. In a world where almost everyone starts the same, whoever dares to step out of the pre-established script leaves a mark. Stoicism taught that life is brief and that wasting it on mechanical gestures is a way of losing the most valuable thing, the present. And in communication, being present is what opens the doors to authenticity. The first tip to bring freshness is to vary the way you start conversations. Change the typical "How are you?" for questions that awaken positive emotions or reflection. A simple phrase like, "Tell me something good about your day," or "What's the most interesting thing that happened to you this week?" breaks the inertia and generates different responses. This small change takes the other person out of the routine and invites them to think and share something more real. The second tip is to use genuine observations about what is happening at the moment. Instead of resorting to filler phrases, comment on what you see, what you hear, or what catches your attention about the environment. If you're in a meeting, you could say, "This place has a particular energy." Or if you're on the phone, maybe your voice sounds calmer than last time. These details show that you are connected with the present and not repeating mechanical phrases. Another essential aspect to maintain freshness is to dare to use light and respectful humor. It's not about being a clown, but about introducing a comment that relieves tension and generates closeness. A genuine smile or a witty phrase can transform a conversation that seemed heavy into something pleasant. Humor is a reminder that interaction doesn't have to be a chore, it can be a space to enjoy. The third tip is to avoid overly rigid internal scripts. Many people enter a chat with prepared answers and end up sounding like machines. Freshness comes from spontaneity, from daring to respond from what you feel and think at that moment. That doesn't mean improvising senselessly. It means letting go of the obsession to control every word. Neuroscience shows that the brain responds with greater attention to the unexpected, and that's why interactions out of the ordinary are the ones that are remembered most strongly. It's also important to vary the topics. Don't limit the conversation always to work, problems, or daily routines. Ask about dreams, recent learnings, forgotten passions. Take the other person out of the usual and make them explore aspects they rarely share. This openness creates a new air and strengthens the connection because it generates surprise and authenticity. Avoid falling into two traps that destroy freshness: the use of filler phrases and the excessive repetition of your own anecdotes. Both habits convey monotony and fatigue. Replace the repetitive with genuine interest in the other person, because when someone feels that you look at them as if they were new each time, the feeling of freshness awakens effortlessly. 6. Make silence your ally. Silence is like an invisible edge. In trembling hands it cuts and hurts, but in steady hands it becomes a precise weapon that commands respect. It works the same way in conversations. Most people fear silence because they associate it with discomfort, emptiness, or lack of ideas. But those who learn to use it intelligently discover that it is not absence, it is presence in its purest form. Well-placed silence has more power than 1,000 hastily spoken words. The Stoics understood it as discipline. Speaking without measure was for them a waste of energy and a sign of weakness. Keeping quiet at the right time, on the other hand, was a sign of self-control, because the one who controls himself enough not to fill everything with noise shows confidence. In a conversation, that control turns silence into an ally that attracts attention, that generates impact, and that sets your voice apart from the rest. The first piece of advice to master silence is to stop seeing it as an enemy. When there is a pause, don't rush to fill it. Breathe and allow the other person to process what you just said. That pause, far from breaking the flow, gives strength to the previous words. Many times people speak without thinking because they fear emptiness and end up saying irrelevant things. If you train yourself to hold brief silences, you project calm and control and force the other person to come out of autopilot. The second piece of advice is to use silence as a strategic resource after an important statement. If you say something weighty, don't sabotage it by filling it with more phrases. Keep quiet and let the other person absorb it. That space multiplies the strength of your message because it gives time for it to sink in. A clear example is when you acknowledge something strong. "I know it hurts, but it was necessary." If you then keep quiet, your presence weighs more than any extra explanation. Another fundamental aspect is to allow silence to invite openness. When someone hesitates to speak, if you pressure them with interruptions or quick questions, they will close up. But if you keep quiet and accompany with your body language, the person usually dares to share more. That patience conveys real interest and breaks down barriers that words cannot cross. Silence thus becomes a bridge to intimacy. It is also key to learn to keep quiet when emotions rise. In arguments or tense moments, many believe that speaking louder will make them right. The reality is the opposite. Silence, held firmly, shows self-control and disarms the other person because you do not feed the fire with more noise. The Stoics repeated that calm is the hardest victory and silence is its clearest expression. If you use it in the midst of tension, you stop being reactive and become a reference of serenity. Neuroscience backs up this power. Studies show that periods of silence activate brain areas linked to creativity and reflection. This means that when you introduce pauses in a conversation, you not only increase your impact, you also help the other person to think better. You will hear deeper responses because you gave the brain the time it needed to process. Avoid two common mistakes: using silence as punishment or as indifference. Staying quiet to manipulate or ignore does not generate respect, it generates resentment. Useful silence is not used to push away, it is used to deepen. Always accompany it with presence, with a firm gaze, with gestures that show that you are still there. In this way, it is not interpreted as coldness, but as strength. 7. Practice these keys in every interaction. Conversations are like a training field. You can read theories, memorize strategies, and repeat advice in your mind. But if you never put anything into practice, your strength does not develop. Just as the muscle needs repetition to grow, the ability to communicate with presence and depth only strengthens when you apply these keys in real life. It is not enough to understand them. You need to exercise them in every encounter, in every greeting, in every dialogue, until they become part of your character. The most common mistake is to believe that these ideas should be reserved for special moments, thinking they only serve in an important interview, in a key meeting, or in a chat with someone influential. That mentality kills progress. The Stoic keys to communicate with power are practiced in everyday life, with the person who serves you in a store, with the colleague who crosses in the hallway, with the friend who sends you a quick message. Each interaction is an opportunity to train your discipline and your presence. The first piece of advice to achieve this is to consciously choose one of the keys and apply it in all your conversations throughout the day. For example, dedicate 24 hours to practice understanding as your personal hallmark. This means listening, validating, and reflecting what you are told without interrupting or shifting the focus to you. By repeating it in different contexts, you will see how little by little your mind stops doing it as an effort and turns it into a natural habit. The second piece of advice is to observe your failures without punishing yourself. There will be times when you forget to apply what you have learned and fall into old routines of talking too much, interrupting, or sounding automatic. Don't see it as a failure, see it as part of the process. Stoic philosophy teaches that error does not destroy, it educates. This constant awareness is what transforms theory into real mastery. Another essential aspect is to practice listening and silence in brief conversations. You don't need a long dialogue to train. Just learn to hold attention without looking at the phone, or leave a 2-second pause before responding. These are small gestures that reprogram your way of interacting. Neuroscience shows that daily repetition shapes brain connections, and that means that every practice, no matter how small, is reconfiguring your mind to communicate with more impact. It is also key to combine the keys with each other instead of using them in isolation. For example, you can start a chat by breaking the routine with freshness, then validate what the other person shares, and finally close with silence so that your words carry more weight. This integration turns your conversations into complete experiences because you are not limited to one technique, but transform your entire way of being present. Avoid falling into the trap of wanting to do it perfectly from the first day. Perfectionism paralyzes and turns practice into anxiety. Don't look for flawless conversations, look for consistency. Strength is built by repeating, not by seeking the ideal execution. Just as a warrior trains daily to sharpen his sword, you need to train your voice, your attention, and your silence until they become natural reflexes. Practicing these keys in every interaction is not a passing challenge, it is a life discipline. If you do it, you will start to notice how people react differently to you. They listen more, trust more, and remember your words clearly. 8. Be authentic, not automatic. People resemble masks in a crowded theater. Each mask smiles, nods, and repeats phrases that everyone expects to hear. From afar, they seem real, but when you get closer, you discover that behind them there is emptiness, routine, and fear of showing themselves as they truly are. This is the reality of most conversations, automatic, predictable, and devoid of life. And the worst part is that this habit is fueled by insecurity, by the fear of not being accepted if we show our essence. However, authenticity is the only thing that manages to break this cycle, because when someone speaks from the truth of their being, it awakens respect and trust instead of indifference. Stoicism teaches that the coherence between what you think, feel, and do is the core of virtue. Pretending is betraying yourself, even if everyone applauds the mask. Therefore, authenticity is not a luxury, it is a necessity to maintain your dignity and your strength. In conversations, being authentic means daring to say what you really think without embellishing it with exaggerations or disguising it with prefabricated phrases. It means responding from your real experience instead of dropping what you think the other person wants to hear. The first advice to practice authenticity is to learn to recognize when you are falling into the trap of the automatic. If you notice that your words sound mechanical, stop and correct. Breathe before answering and ask yourself, do I say this because I feel it or because it suits me to sound good? That moment of pause is what saves you from repeating empty phrases and forces you to connect with what you really want to express. The second advice is not to fear showing vulnerability. Authenticity is not about having all the answers, but about being honest with what you know and what you don't know. Saying, "I'm not sure about that," or "I find it hard to talk about this topic," generates more trust than pretending absolute certainty. People connect with the real, not with the perfect. Whoever always seems to have an impeccable script conveys rigidity, while whoever dares to show themselves human conveys inner strength. Another fundamental aspect is to align your body language with your words. If what you say does not match what you project, authenticity is lost. Look straight ahead, maintain a firm tone of voice, avoid nodding mechanically to please. Each gesture must support your message, because if your actions contradict what you speak, the other person will notice and the connection will weaken. It is also vital to eliminate the need for constant approval. Being authentic implies accepting that not everyone will agree with you, and that's okay. External validation is unstable. It changes with the tastes and expectations of others. Instead, authenticity builds a solid foundation, because it does not depend on what they want to hear. It depends on what you really are. The Stoic remains firm in his truth, even though the noise around him contradicts it, and that firmness inspires those around him. Avoid two mistakes that destroy your authenticity: exaggerating to impress and hiding what you think to avoid conflict. The first makes you an unreliable person, and the second makes you invisible. Instead, seek a balance between firmness and respect. Express your truth clearly, but without the need to attack. That combination is what gives weight to your words and solidity to your character. Being authentic and not automatic is the difference between being remembered or being forgotten. Because empty phrases fade away like smoke, while the authentic voice remains engraved in the memory of those who heard it. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.